This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
It's great to be here today, and I'm so honored to have with me Wayne Richardson, the CEO of Gospel Center Rescue Mission. Good morning, Wayne. Welcome.
Thank you, Julie, for having me here today. It's
really
an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
And it's exciting. It's really thrilling to me to see how you are transforming the Gospel Center Rescue Mission, and you are creating all these amazing opportunities for people and helping them to thrive.
Well, I've got to give glory to the big guy upstairs and just an amazing staff and volunteers and a San Joaquin County community, your listeners that help us every day in all that we do. So big shout out to all the listeners.
And I love what you just said. And when you talk about an amazing staff, you really do have an amazing staff. And what excites me is that several of the staff members are people that have been through addiction and been through the program. Do you want to give a shout out to some of your staff?
Over half of our staff remained, and they're very dedicated, and they want to give back. They work for minimum wage, a lot of them, no benefits. Some of them actually have told me if it wasn't for their ability to get meals and bring them home to their families, they wouldn't be able to stay there. So they're working on the front lines of homelessness. We're in a tough area of town. We're south of the crosstown, where most of our other fellow brothers and sister nonprofits are working homelessness. St. Mary's is nearby, the Food Bank, Salvation Army, and we're right there. And it's where we need to be, but it's a tough area. So the staff is one of the people that makes the place run is my executive Director, Chief Operating Officer Britton Kimball. And then we are also blessed to have, as for me personally, a mentor, my predecessor, Bill Brown, who Julie knows very well, I should say.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, who has stayed on to write grants and be one of our ambassadors in the community. He is arguably, in my view, one of the most knowledgeable people on homelessness that we have in the county, and he's dedicated his life. So we have staff like Bill and Britton and others that are there, and we do tours all the time. So I'd love to introduce the listeners to the staff and the campus, and you simply have to call our general number if you ever want to tour and tour probably what you could arguably say is about 6 nonprofits under one roof that work together in the homeless arena because there's a need in our county for those services. We do everything from our bread and butter, our New Life program, which takes a homeless person from the street, and then 2 years later, they've got a job, an apartment, and they've got a set of values that we use the Bible, but I would also say it's for the rule of law to be a member of society. We do feeding, anywhere from 500 hot meals to 1,500 cold meals a day, free clothing and furniture. If you listener out there needs clothing or furniture or knows somebody that does, they can shop for free. Check out our times on our website. We do recuperative care. That's homeless coming out of the hospital instead of going back to the street or back into their tents. They recuperate on the campus And then we also are a SSI, SSA payee service to pay people's disability checks to them because they may not have an address, they're homeless. We manage their finances. If they have a mental illness of sorts and can't handle their finances. So all that's working together under one roof, and it works very well together. So we have a very diverse staff with a lot of talents.
And it's amazing to me, and I that it's all contained under one roof, and you shelter people overnight too, people that are off the street.
That's the other piece. We shelter about 100 people overnight, about 70 men and 30 women's beds. The women's beds are less because they move very quickly into our New Life program where they have someplace else to go. But the women are guaranteed 30 days. They have, especially if they have children, it's good to have them stabilized. We also do families, although we have very limited capability for families, about the ability to host 2 families in our 100-bed family shelter.
And let's highlight 2 recent designations that your facility has. Earlier, you were telling me that you're designated as a disaster relief facility.
Well, what we do is we work with the Red Cross, and should a natural disaster or, God forbid, a terrorist disaster hit San Joaquin County, we are resource partnered. We partner with the Red Cross. We attend the different meetings that you have to attend for that. But in essence, our chapel would open up to cots and so forth, and any extra beds we had within our other programs would be filled by victims of a natural disaster. God forbid, if Stockton was paradise, we would be, and the mission was spared. The community, myself included, would expect the rescue mission to open its doors and receive, victims that need housing. And then we're blessed. Remember, I mentioned the feedings, the 500 hot meals and the 1,500 cold meals. By the way, that's cold meals. That's a partnership with Starbucks and Second Harvest. So I want to shout out with them. So we have the feeding capacity. We have the clothing, the free clothing, and even furniture to get these victims back in the apartments with furniture. So we're perfectly set up for it. Where it's really almost a no-brainer.
Awesome. And then you were talking to me earlier also that you're the only facility in Northern California that now is designated as a huge facility for recuperative care for the homeless.
Yes, we are a pilot for the state of California, that recuperative care program that I mentioned where the homeless are coming out of the hospitals. We work with all the area hospitals, but especially want to shout out to St. Joseph Dignity and San Joaquin General, working with them, and then a lot of the health providers, Kaiser, Sutter, for example, HealthNet, and to build this facility that we have, this recuperative care, as a model. And one of our beliefs and core components of what we do is we believe in giving away all of our proprietary information to any nonprofit who asks. So this recuperative care is not only being honed for San Joaquin County, but also the entire nation, as any nonprofit can request our the way we do business, the way we have our. We've worked for about 8 years with the area hospitals for intake databases and discharge databases and so forth. So, and that's in every program. And I'll mention this now to include fundraising. If you're a nonprofit out there that is either a small staff, a startup, or has an area missing that you want to explore, like foundation relations or corporate giving or major gift, we do every 6 months a seminar for the community. We've trained about 140 nonprofits in the last 2 years here in Stockton. And the next one is on January 31st at the Family Resource Center. It goes from 9 to 3, about 3:30. And you can sign up at our website. That's www.gcrms.org, or just Google in Gospel Center Rescue Mission, and go to the events page, and you can sign up. We don't make any money from this. We just charge a small fee for the food and the resources, and we do some scholarships. And the Spanos, AG Spanos is underwriting this next event. So
awesome. Shout out to them. That's amazing.
Shout out to them. And we also want to, just along with the radio station and everybody in the community, just really lift up the Spanos family in all of our prayers as they lost two heads of their family in the last 6 months. So,
and yet they're still giving to the community, and that's always been a huge thing, that their ever presence in our community and how benevolent they are in helping so many different organizations and people.
Yes, they are. And we just can't thank them enough for all they do in the community, but and for underwriting this seminar.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm glad you mentioned your website. Let's talk a little bit about the history of GCRM. How long have you existed as an organization? And besides your website, how else can people see what you're doing?
Well, the Gospel Center Rescue Mission was founded in about 1940, believe it or not, from a community movement in Ripon, which, wow, in Ripon, well, I guess they didn't want to have the rescue mission in their backyard. And really, it was needed in Stockton. So, but back then, you had the drifter, the unemployed person, maybe the alcoholic, but not the who was truly looking for work and was hungry and needed overnight shelter. With the onset of drugs in all different forms in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and they keep changing, the mission has had to change to really tackle the drug addiction aspect of homelessness. And so again, I'm going to shout out to Julie's husband, Bill Brown. He had the vision of doing more than just keeping people alive, feeding them and overnight sheltering. He said, we've got to do more. And so he, along with Britton Kimball, Chief Operating Officer, stood up this New Life program, which really addresses everything I mentioned before, from their addiction, job training, literacy. Many people we serve we call them students when they come into any one of the programs that add up to 6 years. There's a 1 6-month program, a second 6-month, and then a year-long transition. But some of the people that can't read or write, and they're not second language Americans or residents. They were perhaps in the foster care, and there was a bad situation. They ran away in the 6th grade, but they ran away when they had a 2nd grade reading level because they were kind of passed on. And here they are, an adult, 35 years old, and they haven't really used a lot of their reading and math. And we're working on math, workbooks that say 12 plus 13 equals back to your basics, so that they can function in society. But that program was established, the New Life program, and that is really the core of what we do. We will feed, we will overnight house, we'll do representative pay services, recuperative care if there's a county need, and there is. But if some of the other nonprofits that we work with can handle the feeding or the overnight housing, our emphasis is the life change. That's the person that 2 years later you wouldn't recognize them, and then fast forward 5 years from as an alumni, they're in the community. They're your Girl Scout leaders, they're your PTA members, they're coaches, they're volunteers, they're productive citizens, working, respecting the rule of law, being good citizens.
And you teach people life skills too, how to balance a checkbook, things that you might not get as part of your high school education, and job training, how to do an interview.
And that's really the second phase, the second 6-month phase after they come out of addiction. I'll just highlight one program is many women have never learned how to cook, and we offer the Safe Serve California Food Handlers Certificate. And so men and women go through that program so that they know how to prepare food for their kids. If they're making a salad for their, you've got to wash the salad. How to store food in your refrigerator. That not only is a life skill for both men and women, but it also gives them a leg up as they interview in either the fast food industry in the county and, surprisingly, the warehouse jobs that are moving food around by forklifts. And it's good to have somebody on staff, as many as possible, that have that food handler's certificate. So that's just one life skill of many that we all take for granted because we were blessed, many of us, living up in a home and so forth with two parents. And so these are things that have to be retaught to our students in the program.
And it's amazing. How many people are you graduating, and how often are your graduations?
We have graduations every 2 months, and we average about 10 people per graduation. So there's probably about 60% women and 40% men. We actually had a very large graduation, our last graduation in the Friday before Thanksgiving. And we had about 14 graduates, and we try to have a member of the community from the government or the corporate, religious, or philanthropic community leader to be our keynote. So 6 times a year we have graduation, and we have 6 leaders. Generally it's 3 men and 3 women leaders as role models, not only challenging our graduates, but also our staff and all those present. So 6 times a year, I get to hear, for example, from a community leader to sow into me as well as our staff. So our graduations, we hope, and everything's going well, we're looking to expand our first major expansion is moving our women to 170 students and with their children, so a combination of students and children in our program. So that should happen in the spring of 2020 with the renovation of the former Alasthesia Hotel and Restaurant. Again, Julie's husband is leading that charge in the fundraising for that area. We've raised, and this is phenomenal, about $2.8 million in the last about year and a half above our normal operating. And we've done that a lot with government grants that Bill has written, as well as a federal home loan bank grant. It's a special program involving banks around the country that gift a percentage of their profits into a fund, and we competed for a $1.3 million grant and got that grant. So that expansion is just mind-boggling. It's affecting our the number of beds that we're increasing. It'll be 117 new beds, and then added to our present beds in the women's program will make 170. We're expanding our mess hall, or I'm sorry, I'm an Army guy, our dining facility. Our dining facility has to expand, and our kitchen has to expand. So those, again, are projects that Bill is working on, Bill Brown, and other staff members are working on that expansion. So when the first phase is this women's expansion, and we will be, based on the sources that we've checked with, and it's City Gate, which is the former Association of Gospel Rescue Missions. Within their network, we would be, by all accounts, the largest faith-based women's with children's long-term program. That would be over 3 months, something that's a regeneration program in North America, right here in Stockton. So there's many excuses to homelessness, and we want to eliminate any excuse other than mental illness, which we're not addressed to equip, and severe handicapped. If they can't get out of a wheelchair and shower themselves or dress, then we can't. We're not equipped for them. But if they are in a wheelchair and they can get out and help themselves, get dressed, shower, we can actually serve them. We've served people without limbs, and they can operate on crutches. So one of the excuses, biggest challenges, is most programs in America are for men. And so we chose the women's program because that addresses that huge problem in America, homeless programs and addiction treatment programs for women. Now add the next challenge, and that's women with children, and there's even fewer programs. To give you an idea, I came from, 2.5 years ago, I came from one of the largest men's programs in America, and they had about 450 beds for the equivalent New Life program, but only 18 for women. So you saw that disparity, 415 and 18. Well, that's being reversed. And then the last one, another excuse that we've dealt with, and this is something that our host, Julie, has helped us with, has been kind of one of my guides in this area from the day my wife and I got here, is in the area of animals, homeless people with pets. So we have a foster pet program for dogs. So any of the students that come into the program and say, no, I'm not going to come in because this dog has been my security, it's been my companion. Well, we have the ability to foster that dog with finding a best friend animal rescue. And if the student leaves a day later, they'll get their dog back. They leave hopefully after each program, and they'll have their dog who's getting all their shots, vaccines, healthcare needs taken care of. So that's an excuse to homelessness example. So with the Anesthesia building renovation and having 170 beds in a program, you're going to be able to meet that demand primarily because you have a lot of turnover in any rescue mission in the orientation. People come in and they realize they've got to change their life and they're not willing to do that, and they leave. Well, that's the bad news. The good news is there's always a bed for any listener out there come spring of 2020, where in the past you've called a shelter for women, and they're all full around the county. We have wonderful partners, but they have the challenge, like we do, of not having enough beds. Well, we will have the bed for women and women with children. So that's kind of the history in a long way of where we are from 1940 to today, where we want to be a leader in the fight against, to use another Army term, against homelessness. But we can't address the two major challenges, and that's mental illness and also just the, I won't say laziness, but the desire to maintain a homeless lifestyle. And it's really one of the most frustrating things for any of our staff and any of our volunteers and ambassadors. And I consider our host today, my host, Julie, today, an ambassador. She sees it all the time when she's down working, with the homeless with pets. It's very frustrating when they won't get help and there's help available for them. So, but for anybody that does want that help, we want to be ready with a bed for them and a program for them. And at this point, I want to thank our donors and anybody that's listening. If you support the Gospel Center Rescue Mission, I just want to say thank you. And also to everybody to please remember us during this end of year season. If you give in December to a local organization, please do so to all of those organizations that you like and that you know about. But please include us as well.
And how can people do that? Can they do that on the website? Can they call you?
Easiest way is to go right to the website, and you'll see a Ways to Give tab, and you can make a credit card donation. And if you want to do anything special, you can fund, for example, a scholarship for one of the students coming in the program, or a specific need. You will see them there on our website. All of our, we call it our needs list, is one-page documents, executive summaries, and they cover with all of our programs. You can actually see what you're funding, and then you can see your dollars at work. So we have one of the things when you do give to a charity, you want to check them out for their cost of fundraising. You'd be shocked that some nonprofits charge up to 60 to 70 cents on the dollar to fundraise. The national average is 20 cents. So you can go to an organization called GuideStar. It's free, and see your charity. If they file a 990, so you won't see your churches there, but any nonprofit that files an IRS 990, which is a nonprofit tax return, you'll see their cost of fundraising. So you want to be a good steward of your philanthropic dollar and make it go as far as you can, and you want to support those that are more efficient, because they're doing more with less. So we're around 14 cents on the dollar. Next year we should be around 5 cents on the dollar because of all the fundraising for the Anesthesia building that's come in, will hit next year.
Awesome. And we should give a shout out to Melanie View, who's your
Melanie
architect.
View is she is with W&B Architects. She is a Rotarian. That's where I met her. But also they have done a lot of projects on our campus, and very interesting that she will be the besides designing the Anesthesia building, she'll be the president of Rotary when we have our grand opening, because she takes the helm as Madam chairperson of Rotary in June of next year.
Rotary Club of Stockton.
Yeah, so that'll go all the way around to when we have our grand opening, and part of her project is to renovate the playground behind the Anesthesia building that Rotary put in about 10 years ago. So, but W&B Architects also did the work on our recuperative care building, and they're helping us pro bono with. We have 2 Victorians that are on the campus that are eyesores, and they're getting renovated as well. So, which brings me, just if you take a campus tour, you will see that every building structure on campus has been renovated in the last 2 years, is being renovated, or is fundraising is happening to renovate them. So we're really given a facelift. We've had several community service projects. We had a Love Stockton event in the summer of 2016, and
the Lions were there.
Lions were there cooking, and I got Julie on film planting trees there. So she was planting a lot of trees and some pretty tough soil, I have to say. And then last summer we had several churches come together, led by First Baptist Church here in Stockton, doing a lot of exterior painting and some landscaping work, and some work out in our recuperative care in the exterior. We had new fence lattice put in for security, and some more garden. We have a healing garden, which all of this you'll see, and all you need to do is call our general number and ask for a tour. And if you tour, allow about 90 minutes to see all the different programs, and one of the times I recommend is 10:30 to 12, and then we'll host you for lunch, so you can stick around for lunch with the students.
Awesome. And I'm excited, too, that you're going to be working more with United Way. And shout out to Kristen Berthwitzel, and she was just there for the graduation. And the graduations are amazing. I try to go to as many as I can. And this one, to me, was particularly special. You had a young woman who gave an amazing testimony, a poem that she wrote about her everyday struggle. And if you can share for us a little bit about why addiction is such a challenge for people and the everyday struggle that they go to, and also maybe tell us, how do some of your students come to you? Is it that they are receiving meals, or they were sheltered overnight? How do they hear about your program and start to participate?
Well, there's about 4 questions there, so I'll try to pick them off one by one. Addiction. I think about, I'll use myself. Thanksgiving just came around, and I need to lose about 5 to 10 pounds. Okay?
We all do.
We all do. So if you think of food, and if you're overweight 1 pound or 5 pounds, and you struggle to lose that 5 pounds, or that's probably the best example that we all can understand, with addiction that they have. Now with food, we obviously have to eat, to survive. We have to drink water or fluids and eat to survive. But that craving for sugar, for example, or just other mealtime things. That is probably the easiest way to try to tell you to think about how people affected by drugs are feeling. And by the way, we have, there's examples of pastors or members of community that, let's say, got in a car accident and they were in the hospital and they got hooked on, oxy or painkillers. And so it doesn't discriminate. It's not an economic issue, wealth, or it's cross all social barriers. So that's the addiction piece. So we get people primarily through the programs that we do there. And I'll just use one that's a high percentage is our recuperative care. Here's homeless men and women that don't like to go to hospitals, but for some reason they had probably a broken limb, an affected wound, they were shot, stabbed. They wind up in the emergency room, the hospital bringing them there. Well, they have to have a discharge plan when they leave. And so they hear about the hospital, especially if it's St. Joseph's or County General, refer them, and they they're admitted into our program. And so think about the last time you as a listener, you were laid up in bed, maybe a flu or something. You had time to think, and maybe you planned your next vacation or caught up on your homework for if you're going to school or something. Well, the homeless people have an opportunity to think about their mistakes. And then it's not me or somebody like Julie, who's on our campus a lot, telling them to come into the program. They can actually, they're eating in the dining hall with other students who were homeless. They can talk to them. They can see for themselves. They can audit classes. So so a lot of them come into our program. So from the recuperative care right into the New Life program. Then a big one is the overnight sheltering, where every night there's a message of hope that's given to them, and really our housemen and housewomen are trying to get them to consider coming into the New Life program. So those are, and then the biggest one is people like you listeners. I'm sure every's a strong word, but if you don't know somebody that's homeless or addicted to drugs, you will probably after this radio show. Somebody will come to you, but you have a family member, a friend, or a girlfriend that says her daughter's addicted to drugs, or at work, and you refer them to the Gospel Center Rescue Mission. And if we have a space in the New Life program, they can come in. Right now, that's the challenge, is bed space anywhere. And so that's what we're doing in the next 10 years, really 8 years now, to expand our program to be able to serve everybody. So everybody will have a resource here in this county to refer people to come down, and then it's up to free will at that point to they have to hit rock bottom generally. Then they've tried it their way. They think they've got a plan to be Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, in the next, year, and that doesn't work out.
The next year.
And because that's addiction. It's really the immediate. It's immediate gratification. When people come
loss of perception of reality too.
Exactly. So people come into our program, and you see very quickly they're really focused on the next 5 minutes. It's that short term. And then you see them moving during the biggest thing I see that is the light going on in their mind is when they start serving others, when they start thinking of others before themselves. And yes, we're all selfish by nature, we're humans, but you see them truly getting satisfaction from helping at a community event, to help at a Love Stockton project. We'll send our students to. We'll try to help when we can other nonprofits because we all need help from time to time. So
you helped United Way Move recently,
and our students were blessed, and so when you have people signing up for those activities, it really says a lot about the students where they are in their journey about thinking about others and becoming a member of society again.
It's huge. And one thing we haven't talked about is Gleason House.
Gleason House, we have Community Medical Center on our campus, and I'm going to shout out, they just opened a beautiful facility on North Stockton. It's I think it's one of their largest facilities. Used to be a thrift store that my wife and I shopped at, and I was there for the grand opening. They do an amazing work with the homeless community, the uninsured, and they have several campuses in Stockton, and we're blessed to have one of their clinics right on our campus called the Gleason House. So we own the building, but they operate it, take care of it, and so we have a little medical clinic right on campus, and they do amazing work.
And shout out to Randy Pinelli, and we now do a pet vaccine clinic there with the students of Carrington quarterly, and it's been a win-win. And it's just amazing. Community Medical Centers has been here on the radio, and not only do they have facilities in Stockton, but they have facilities throughout our county and beyond.
I think they go as far north as Sacramento County. I think they're up, but yes, they do, and it's so good to see them just opened. Time flies. So about 2 weeks ago, their new facility in North Stockton. So the community is blessed by them, and so many other great nonprofits that work here in this community.
Awesome. And earlier you were talking about how the community can help you, and you talked about end of the year giving. You and I earlier also discussed volunteers.
Yeah. Well, just about every nonprofit needs volunteers. And I think the key is to look at the organization, and if you have a connection to them, if you're a pet lover, you need to be going with Julie and following her around. So, and there's other organizations, but if you have a heart for the homeless, and especially we need counselors. Each of our students gets an hour of counseling a week. And then we have tutors that work in the learning centers that just sit next to them, and you think, well, I've never taught anybody. But if you had a high school diploma, you can sit next to them and remember the example of the 13 plus 17, math, that's where they're at or they're reading comprehension, and they don't understand a word, and you can help them with that word. But the 6 month, we ask for a 6 month commitment for especially our counselors and our tutors. It could be 1 hour a week, but with counseling as an example, we want that we pair up people that are lay counselors in their church or have especially addiction counseling, and the student will know that they've got the counselor for the 6 months in their first or second program. So, and yes, we understand that volunteers get sick too and can't make their dates, or they go on vacation, but the student would know that, my counselor is Mary Smith, and she's coming back. She missed this week because she's at a baby shower for her granddaughter, but she'll be back next week, that type of thing. So you can go on our website, and there's a volunteer tab to look at our volunteer opportunities. So that's one thing we need. We have been blessed by end of year corporations that have just raised a ton of gifts for the homeless population that we serve every day, our students in the program, and their kids. So a shout out to Lincoln Center. If you go by Lincoln Center now, you'll see the billboard. I was there earlier today for a breakfast, and they're collecting coats and socks for.
Awesome.
And socks is a huge need in the homeless community. The homeless community goes through a lot of socks, underwear. And then we've also had Simpson Strong Tie, which is down by the airport. They're a huge facility there. Their employees gathered about over 500 backpacks for the homeless and filled them. They paid for everything, and they did a nice competition event to do that. And then ServPro is collecting for our kids. First Baptist Church, Lincoln Presbyterian have Christmas trees that you take an ornament, kind of like an angel tree, and one of our students or their children, you collect a gift, and those have been all successful. So I think we're good in the gift arena. the volunteer area, if you're thinking about a New Year's resolution to get out more in the community and be half the advocate that Julie is. Okay, I got to shout out to my host here, and volunteer and get plugged in, or you're thinking about an end of year gift. Please consider the Gospel Center Rescue Mission, and we like to steward our donors through graduations. As Julie said, they're open to the public. If you RSVP, call us, let us know you're coming. We'll actually reserve a seat.
When's the next one?
The next one is on January 18th, and Pastor Glenn Shields of Progressive Community Church is our keynote speaker. And so that's a Friday, and we start right on the dot at 1:30. So you want to get there a little bit ahead of time with parking and so forth. The other thing is if you RSVP, we generally have a spot within the fenced-in campus for you to park, so we know you're coming. But we do have students that perform security for our cars, roaming security during graduations, but a tour can happen anytime. So if you did a tour first before January, then you'd really understand. Wow, that's our payday graduation. That's when we celebrate change lives. This is the person, the man or woman that you will pass, a listener, on the highway today or on the corner that's got a sign up that says, give me money, and they're probably conning you for that money. And these people you wouldn't recognize, after their first 6 months, second 6 months, or 2-year graduation. And so those are graduations. They're community events. We've had county supervisors. In fact, in 2019, Kathy Miller will be one of our graduation speakers. Our mayor of Stockton is going to be one of our graduation speakers as well. So we have a really nice venue. But
Christina Fugazi has been a past
Christina,
speaker.
And she was amazing. She was one of our more popular graduation speakers. So
Tom Patty, I think.
Tom Patty, and so everybody from the Catholic bishop to people like Ron Barber, who I'll give a shout out, was our last graduation speaker. Ron is probably one of the most anonymous philanthropic people here in the county, and he has, with our anesthesia building, he has funded two of the 5 phases, the demolition and the hazardous material removal, and his team does work other projects on our campus, and he does this for other nonprofits as well. He actually helps elderly people who own homes with to keep their homes. So he was our graduation speaker, and I just another example of just presenting an outstanding member of the community to our graduates, our staff, and all of us to hear from.
And earlier you were talking about volunteers, and volunteers make a huge difference in the community, and anyone can volunteer. If you can't do a 6-month commitment, like you were talking about earlier as a counselor for Gospel Center Rescue Mission, you can volunteer with the Food Bank, United Way, Lions, Rotary, Pixie Woods,
St. Mary's.
So many organizations in our community. And so if there's an area, St. Mary's, if there's an area you have a passion with, that that really speaks to you, just connect a nonprofit, and they would be happy for you to help to do amazing work and transform lives. And earlier you gave a shout out to one of your staff, but one thing that's amazing that you'd see if you go to the graduation is how much your staff cares about the students that are there, and they become like family, and it's phenomenal.
And probably the even bigger example of that is the kids. One thing I didn't mention, there's about, last time I checked, is about 32 kids that call the Gospel Center Rescue Mission their home. And that'll expand to over 50 on the weekends as moms are getting custody back, visitation custody back for their kids. And we're a safe campus. They have everything they need there, from playground, childcare, meals, even getting clothing. And so these kids, every staff member is an uncle or aunt, and even the other students in the programs are uncle and aunts. So that was one of the saddest things when I first arrived several years ago, seeing kids there at first. But then when I learned where they came from and the homes or the lack thereof of homes, and now seeing them in a safe environment, showered with love, I feel really good about, and there are kids. So you do see kids there. We try to have one of the children in graduation lead the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a nice reminder for all of us that they're graduating too with their moms,
And they're our future. They're our future. One last thing that I'd like you to comment on. I think that, and you mentioned briefly, you touched on it. I think people have the perception that all people that are homeless want to be that way. What percentage of people that are homeless do you think that really want to stay on the street versus the percentage that want to move out of their situation?
Okay, so there's no studies definitive. It's and it's a very complicated question. But just me personally, I would say probably over 90% of the people on the street have not hit that rock bottom that when the opportunity is presented to them, will take it. It's the example I use is you see somebody with a sign says need work, and you give them your business card and you say, hey, I'm renovating my house, or I could use some help, call this number tomorrow. And as you drive away, you see the card getting flipped, type of thing. So, but it's that starfish example on the beach story where, two people are walking along and there's thousands of starfish, and one person picks up a starfish and throws it in the ocean, and the other says, what are you doing? That's not going to make a difference. Look at it out there. And the other person said, well, it did for that one starfish. And so we want to be that difference for any one person that wants life's transformation. And these life transformed people are examples, are our staff, and they're amazing people. And then those that go back into society and become productive again, and they truly are miracles. So you're creating a miracle with every single life that's changed.
And it's not just one person. You talk about 6 to 10 that you're graduating every 2 months, but over the years, those numbers are adding up, and you're transforming hundreds and thousands of lives cumulatively.
And we want to do more in that area, and that's the expansion. First, the women's program I've talked about, and then the men's right behind it, so that life change. The good book that I read called the Bible says there's always going to be hungry and poor. And that's true. That's historically that's been the case. But we want to change. What we can do is reach down at any social economic level and change a life and get that family restored, get fathers back to their families, moms being super moms again, and just people back on the path that was always there, the abundant life that our Creator always had waiting for them.
Awesome. And just remind us of your contact information. I know you're on Facebook as well. And any final comments as we wrap up?
I want to thank the radio station here for hosting the Gospel Center Rescue Mission and so many other nonprofits. And they are a nonprofit too. So remember them in your end-of-year giving. And support this radio station that has a heart for local charities, to as the Gospel Center Rescue Mission is today, is letting you know what we do. And best way is go to our website, just Google in the words Gospel Center Rescue Mission, and we'll pop up. But it's www.gcrms.org. So, but you'll forget that. But Gospel Center Rescue Mission, Google that, will come up. Come down and see us. And when you do, you'll learn about the programs I've talked about.
And your street address?
And we're at 445 South San Joaquin. So we're at the corner of San Joaquin and Church Street. Another thing that I would just say is if you have teenagers, bring them down for the tour. When my teens were kids, you kind of shock and awe them, and they will see what drugs can do to their lives and homelessness, and it could be a wake-up call for some of your teens. So welcome them as well on the tour.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for the tireless hours that you spend, that you give to the community, and the amazing way that you're helping people transform their lives. You're invaluable to our community.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I am the voice of Stockton. You are the voice of Stockton. We are the voice of Stockton. Let's make it a great day.